So I think we must be coming up for a couple of weeks now since I first started using this one-handed keyboard. I've changed the layout slightly of the webcam so that hopefully you can get a bit of a better view. I haven't been doing as much practicing as I had in the past, mainly because I've been relying a lot on dictation, but also because I've just been typing and just kind of getting on with getting familiar. So I came back to it a bit this weekend, and it was a bit of I hadn't typed since Thursday because it was bank holiday weekend, and suddenly I was quite aware that I'd forgotten stuff and I had to go back and redo things. But a couple of things I've learned is, so because my left hand is the injured one, I normally wear my wrist on this hand. So I've been wearing it on this hand, and I have quite a heavy, not on my watch, sorry, and I have quite a heavy watch. And what I've noticed is that it was really weighing my hand down when I was trying to type. So I've started taking my watch off when I'm typing, and I think that's making a big difference because I was getting my hand was getting quite tired when I was doing lots of the practicing. I've also noticed that my knuckle is getting quite painful, and I think it's because I have a roller mouse which requires you to do this movement. So I'm just very aware of not overusing my hand, and that's what they do say with the tutorials, to make sure that you're resting and stuff. So that's just a couple of things. I'm doing lots of stretching and kind of making sure that I do fully stretch my fingers like this, because they spend lots of time in their kind of bent position, so I'm just making sure I'm doing lots of finger exercises as well. So this is exercise 26. It's the final unit, and this one is where they're teaching you Z, V, apostrophe and full stop and shift, and some of them I've already used in some of the exercises, but it starts with the basic one. What I found with the end of the unit before this was it really upped the ante. Like, the exercises were using quite complicated words and quite long words, and it was quite tiring. By the time I got to the end I was quite frazzled. And it says at the bottom of all the training, make sure you take a break, but I hadn't really been doing that because I don't often have periods of time where I can practice. So listen to what they say, I guess. So here we go. I have practiced this one a bit, but because it's the starting ones, they're quite easy because you're just moving around the home keys. So there's a new key here which is V, so your H is here and you're moving diagonally. So for me that was quite an easy one to learn as well. And the same with the Z, so the Z is here diagonally from the A, so that's quite an easy one to learn because you already have the root of the A key. So, and then apostrophe is up here, which is quite an easy, it's not too much of a stretch. And it's nice that they do like E here back to A, because that's sort of like a natural movement. For these first exercises, I'm sure it's going to get harder. And the aim is that you don't look at your hands, but what I find is when I first start, I do glance down just to make sure that my fingers are coming back to the home keys particularly. I find if I get in a muddle, it's because I've not come back to the home key. So that's fairly easy. Oops. And I had a question on the video, on the comments, about about letters repeating. I'll put a note in the bottom of the description of this talk, but there is a manual for these keyboards which they don't actually provide you with. It's something you can download off the website, and the manual tells you there's some secret key commands, combinations you can do to turn on and turn off slow, medium or fast repeats. So if you're finding that when you're pressing a key it's double tapping the letter, you should probably change it. I guess it's probably on medium by default. You should probably change that and play around with which works best for you. I had that at the beginning, but I've kind of got used to it. I think it was because of just getting used to the typing and the tactile feedback from the keyboard. So I'll put the notes in the description so that if you have that problem you can find that information as well. Oops. I'm not very good at doing what I'm reading. I wasn't reading the full stops. So that's an example of not coming back to the home keys. I wasn't on H, I was on E. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one just because that gets a bit boring after a while. So these are all capital I. It says at the top somewhere reminding you that it's capital I, not lowercase l or number one. Because on some browsers I guess it looks different. So this one's a bit more complex because you need to do the shift and use the sticky key to hit I. So by default when you press shift that's a sticky key and you can let go of it and press I, realizing that was a bit of a ground changing moment for me. But it does mean moving. I found this one quite tiring because it does mean moving your hand across. Oops, not paying attention. Not paying attention because there wasn't even an apostrophe there, see? So I find V a bit tricky, but I'm getting used to it. I think it's just because I mentioned in earlier videos I don't think I use my little finger very much when I'm typing, generally when I touch type, and this requires you to use it for like all of these keys need to be done by the little finger, and particularly R and N actually come up more than I was expecting, so it's getting a bit of a workout getting used to using these this keyboard more so than I've used before. Oops, missed a space. So that one's, like I said, a bit more of a stretch on the wrist. I find particularly with using this combination moving here and having to come across to V. So it's getting your wrist mobility moving quite a bit. And then this is the last one. So this has got a few different capitalizations and full stop as well as going across to V, A, H. So it does definitely gets harder, and it says here these new stretches will be tiring. So yeah, do sort of give yourself a bit of a break as you get further along. It is harder, definitely. Oops. Still not confident with that V. It's going to take a bit more practice, I think. Oops. It really does still take me a lot of my concentration when I'm doing this. I guess like when you're typing normally you're not necessarily reading, you're usually like thinking what you want to say, so reading and processing that and then typing for me is quite tiring. Oops. Yeah, it's the same, it's not going far enough. I had this problem when I was learning Q and B as well, like I kept hitting P and B, and I think it's just like every time I have to say to myself, no, it's right at the edge, it's right at the edge, and I have to push myself right over. It doesn't feel natural to do that. And I think I find particularly coming off certain combinations, like I think maybe from going from here where your hand is already sort of moving this way to then having to come right over to here is quite a challenge. Oh, I missed an A. Do for that. So that's where I'm at the moment. I haven't actually done a typing test in ages, so let's just see where I'm at with that. Okay. Last time I did this I had really horrible sentences with letters that I hadn't learned. It is very different typing in sentences to typing the practice tests, the practice stuff that you get from Maltron, that's for sure. Wait for all the ads to load. Okay. Haven't done quote marks yet, and there's lots of quote marks in this. 15 words a minute. One error, so that will be down to 14, I think. So I think that's a bit of an improvement on where I was previously. I think I was on about 12. So, oh no, well maybe not. 13 words a minute with one wrong. So there we are. I might try later doing it with a bit of a longer piece of text, because I find doing it for a minute is quite a short period of time. But yeah, there we are. So I'll carry on practicing and getting more effective and more efficient and faster, hopefully. So if you've got any specific questions, or there's something that you want to know, then do feel free to drop a question in the comments below, and I will pop a link as well to the manuals for the one-handed version of the Maltron keyboard. I think it's one manual for both left and right-handed, so I'll pop that in the description as well. So yeah, have a good day and see you again soon.